guys. All right. Today we are going to be talking about multiplying fractions again. Okay, so super important to remember when we're multiplying fractions. Just like multiplication is just repeated addition, when we multiply fractions, all we're doing is repeated addition. So think about the models we drew last week. That's what we need to remember, is that we're just taking those unit models and we're just adding them repeatedly. Okay? So we can draw models like that all day. But when we get into our bigger numbers, it's going to get harder and harder for us to draw those models. So we want some other tools that we can use so that we can multiply these fractions. So I know Sindora noticed this last week, and some of y'all may have noticed this as well. But when we have our whole number and I multiply by, and I'm going to just use a unit fraction for right now. We're going to be getting into our bigger fractions in a little bit. Let me turn off that light and see if there's less glare. There we go. All I'm going to be doing is I'm multiplying my whole number times my numerator. Because if you think of this, this is just like saying I have 1 11 times. Do you remember when we drew out our models with our unit fractions? And we drew out those models and we just had 1 colored in however many times our whole number? So that's what we want to remember that we're doing, is we're multiplying our whole number times our numerator. And so if I do that, 11 times 1 is 11. And then remember, we always want to keep our denominator the same, right? Because the number of pieces that we cut our model into is not going to change. So for this fraction, it's always going to be 4. So I want to keep my denominator the same. Okay, so I multiply my numerator, denominator stays the same. Okay, let's try another example. I'll do 9 times 1/5. So I could draw out my models. I could draw 9 models of 1/5, or I can multiply my numerator times my whole number. 1 times 9 is 9. My denominator stays the same because the number of slices that I cut up my fraction into, or my model into, is still going to stay the same. So my answer is 9/5. We're going to get into turning these into our mixed numbers right now. Okay. So remember, at any time you can pause the video if you need more time to work this out, or if you want to go back through and watch it again to have it make more sense. Okay, so let's look at another example. This one is not going to be a unit fraction. We've been working with unit fractions so far. This is not going to be a unit fraction. So I'm going to do 3/5 times the whole number 6. Now I'm going to still do this the same way, because this would be like if I made 6 models of 3/5. So I'm not changing anything I'm doing. I'm still doing the same thing, even though it is not a unit fraction anymore. I'm going to multiply my numerator times my whole number. 3 times 6 equals 18. Do my fraction bar. My denominator stays the same. It doesn't change. Okay, so I have 18/5. I notice 18/5 is an improper fraction. And I need to change that into a mixed number. Because Miss Leba says no, 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 improper fractions. So remember, I'm going to use my fraction bar, 18 divided by 5. 18 divided by 5. And I'm going to think, what times 5 gets me close to 18? Well, let's see. I know 5, 10, 15. I can do 3 times 5 equals 15. That's pretty close to 18. Let's see how we did. 18 minus 15 is 3. Do you remember what we do with our remainders? Good. My remainder is going to come up and be my numerator. My denominator stays the same. So my mixed number would be 3 3/5. 3 3/5. Okay, so we can solve problems like that. Stretch out my screen a little bit. We can also do, we can also multiply on a number line. So we're going to practice that. Now this again, we've talked about this. This is easier with smaller numbers. Once we get into the bigger numbers and are slicing it into smaller pieces, it gets kind of smushy, so it's hard to see. So this is good for some of the smaller numbers, if this makes sense to you. And you will also see it in Canvas. So I want to make sure that we see this just so we know what it looks like. Okay, so let me take a different color. Oh, I want a different color here, just to separate it out a little bit. Okay, so let's take 5. There's my whole number. 5 times 1, 6. And I'm going to draw this on a number line. Okay. So I know with my unit fraction, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to probably stay under 1. So this is going to be pretty easy peasy. So I'm going to draw my number line, and I'm going to take it 0 to 1. And I want to divide it up into 6 equal pieces. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, 4, 6, 5, 6, and 6, 6 is my whole. Okay. When I'm multiplying with the fractions, I'm going to start at 0 unless it tells me otherwise. Because I'm starting with 0 with nothing, and then I'm multiplying. I'm doing these repeated addition. I'm adding these fractions in repeatedly. So I want to do 1, 6. I want to jump 1, 6 5 times on my number line. Okay, so I have 1, 6. I'm going to write this underneath. Plus 1, 6. So 1, 2. Here's my 3. Here's my 4. Here's my 5. So I've gone, oops, and I wrote 5 there. Look at me. I've jumped 1, 6 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I ended up on my answer of 5, 6. Okay. We're going to do another example of this that is not unit fractions, just so we can see another example on the number line. And again, remember, you can pause this at any time if you need more time to look at it. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to do my whole number 4 times, let's do 2/3. So it's a little bit different because I don't have my unit fraction this time. I have my numerator of 2. So when I draw my number line, I need to make it a little bit longer in that it's going to be the same size as this, but I need to add more numbers to it. So I'm going to go from 0 to 3 this time. So these are my whole numbers. And I'm going to have my whole number 1 and my whole number 2 in here. And now let me add my fractions in a different color. Now I can add my fractions in. And I'm going to look at my denominator so I know I'm splitting up each of my whole numbers into 3 equal parts. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I have 1/3, 2/3, then I have my whole number 1, 1 and 1/3, 1 and 2/3, and I have my whole number 2, 2 and 1/3, 2 and 2/3, and my whole number 3. Okay, I'm ready to hop on my number line now. Okay, I'm going to start at 0. And I am going to jump 2/3 places 4 times. Okay, we're making bigger hops this time. So I'm going to jump 2/3. 1, 2. I'm going to end up here. I'm going to jump 2/3. So jump twice. I need to jump 2 more. 1, 2. I'm going to jump 2/3. I have 1 more hop to make. 1, 2. I'm going to jump 2/3. And I am going to end up at my answer of 2 and 2/3. Okay, we're going to practice with a Nearpod. Keep this handy, and I also have this loaded up into our math notebook in Teams if you need to look back at it, or you can look back at the one that you just did. Okay, great job. Thanks, guys.